There is a future you that is living your dream. And if you believe that as inevitable, then it's just a matter of, okay, what am I going to do with my time now? As the kids these days say, being Delulu is the solulu. I think there's something to be said about this type of ruthless self-belief. So today's podcast episode is about delusional mindset shifts to make to instantly boost your self-confidence. Hi, hello. Welcome to Mary's Cup of Tea, the self-love podcast for women, though all self-lovers are welcome here. I'm Mary. I write and speak about self-love, and I'm best known for my book, The Gift of Self-Love, and I also host retreats for women. And this is the podcast that will inspire you to love yourself. Real quick, before we dive in, I want to make sure you know about my book, The Gift of Self-Love. It's a workbook to help you build confidence, recognize your worth, and learn to love who you are. It's available anywhere books are sold. Thousands of people have it, love it, and have told me that it has greatly benefited their self-love journey, and I hope it'll do the same for you. And now let's get into the podcast. I often think about how much people lie, not in a malicious sense, but we lie in all sorts of ways to make ourselves or someone else feel better. Some might call that a white lie. There's actually a really interesting research study that showed on average, people lie between 0 to 2 times per day, and only 1% of people don't lie at all. But honestly, the research study is kind of trash. I'll link to it in the description in case you want to investigate. But it was all based on self-reported survey data. So they followed people over the course of a few months, and every time they lied, they would have to note that they lied. And I imagine that a lot of people don't want to admit when they're lying, and also that there are some lies that we tell ourselves that we don't even consider as being lies. People lie for all sorts of reasons. I would consider people-pleasing as a form of lying, right? You're lying about your own needs, wants, and desires to accommodate someone else's. Another way we lie is by talking shit to ourselves. When you tell yourself that you are ugly, unworthy, terrible, awful, bad, when you talk to yourself like that, that is a lie. I don't care what you say. You can argue with me about it all day long. I've spent 5 years on this podcast trying to convince you otherwise. So feel free to argue with me parasocially by listening to other episodes. But I consider that a way of lying because there's this book called The 4 Agreements. And I'm sure you've heard about it. It's many, many years old. It's a very short read. And it's basically about 4 agreements to make with yourself, or kind of like 4 rules for living. And there's a couple of interesting paragraphs that I want to read to you that inspired this episode, this idea of how many of our beliefs are just lies that we absorb as the truth, and we believe them for so long that over time, we forget that we're even lying to ourselves. He writes, Don Miguel Ruiz, by the way, the author of The 4 Agreements, he has this quote that says, 95% of the beliefs we have stored in our minds are nothing but lies, and we suffer because we believe all these lies. Is 95% accurate and measurable? I don't know, but it sounds true to me. And that is the title, the entire idea behind this podcast episode is, how do we not lie, but embody beliefs regardless of whether or not they're objectively true, but the type of beliefs that are useful to you. Oh my goodness, did I just make an unintentional rhyme? It doesn't matter if something is objectively true. What matters is your perspective and if it is useful to you. Right now, you might be lying to yourself in all sorts of different ways that aren't useful to you. A couple ways that I mentioned earlier, you're people-pleasing, you're overcommitting yourself, you're talking shit to yourself. In The 4 Agreements, he refers to it as this dream of the planet. So he writes, the dream of the planet includes all of society's rules, its beliefs, its laws, its religions, its different cultures and ways to be, its government, schools, social events, and holidays. We are born with the capacity to learn how to dream, and the humans who live before us teach us how to dream the way society dreams. So we are all clouded by this fog of other people's opinions, other people's expectations, other people's agendas, all these societal norms and rules and everything else that he listed that we grow up with, that we tell ourselves so much so that we start to believe it as the truth, when in reality, it might just be one person's version of the truth. And that doesn't mean that it has to be your truth. So today's podcast episode is about delusional mindset shifts to make to instantly boost your self-confidence. The whole theme of this podcast for the past couple of weeks has been about finding yourself, reigniting your spark, self-discovery, essentially getting yourself out of a rut. And that is reflective of the mind space that I've been, is just okay, Mary, enough is enough. You have been just ruminating for so long. You have been overthinking for so long. You've been second guessing yourself for too long. When is it time to finally stop? And I think that if you are in that low place, making that decision to get yourself out involves a certain level of delusion, especially if you feel like shit. If you feel like shit, you have to start by bribing yourself just a little bit to get yourself out of that dark place. And you can bribe yourself with, as the kids these days say, being Delulu is the solulu. I think there's something to be said about this type of ruthless self-belief. And we'll get into the few mindset shifts to make. But first, let me read a recent podcast review that I received that made me so happy. It said, "I've fallen in love with this podcast and find myself going on benders listening." Those are the types of benders that I want you to go on. "I appreciate how open, honest, and vulnerable Mary is. She encourages you to reflect on different aspects of yourself, including your desires and needs." Super on brand for today's episode. If you would like to support the show for free, it takes less than a minute, but means the world to me. There I go again, rhyming. What is in the air today? Please take a moment to leave a review. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can also leave a comment, Spotify as well. But those podcast reviews on Apple are what really, really help the show grow. So, powerful mindset shifts to make that are slightly delusional might not be true in all cases. Again, you might be arguing with me in your head, which is totally fine. But as always, take what you need and ignore the rest, whatever is going to support you on your self-love journey. The first mindset shift to make: you have time. Say that to yourself right now. I have time. A lot of people in the motivational sphere, I suppose, think that it really helps to get people going by telling them life is short, do things now, no regrets, somebody or you might die. And I appreciate the sentiment. But again, being a little bit delusional is about choosing the truth that is going to help you. And I don't know about you, but sometimes this idea of life is short just makes me panic. It makes me feel even more perfectionistic and overwhelmed by all the things that I want to do. And that overwhelm is a little bit mentally paralyzing, right? And honestly, I had a coaching call many, many years ago. I don't even remember with who, but I had a lot of coaches and mentors in my day. And I got on this call and I remember hearing the words, "Mary, you have time." Now, could this mentor have been saying this to me because I was 20 years old and she saw, the whole life I had ahead of me? Sure. But honestly, I think it's powerful to, at any age, remind yourself that you have time, because yes, it could be true, depending on what truth you want to believe, that life is short, but also life is the longest damn thing that you will experience ever. So in that regard, life is long and you have time, and you don't have to do everything all at once. You have time. Let that be a confidence boost, because I think it helps you. The idea of having time, imagine walking into a coffee shop or restaurant, and imagine walking slower than your usual pace. And you're able to take in your surroundings, and your body language is relaxed, and your posture is upright, and you are making eye contact with fellow humans, and you roll in to whatever occasion with this self-assured, grounded energy. And that shit, not only is it really hot, that shit also helps you not just appear more confident, but actually be more confident. Because I've said this so many times before on this podcast, but if you want to appear more confident, practice walking slowly, practice slowing down your speech, slowing down everything you do, whatever you're doing right now, even if you're driving, slow it down. If you're walking, can you make your steps a little bit more deliberate, perhaps a little more relaxed? If you're doing something around the kitchen, maybe you're washing dishes or cooking dinner, slow down the movement of your hands. Do you feel the instant? I think confidence comes from grounded energy. And I know I might not always be able to channel that on this podcast because I do get a little bit nervous as I'm recording, talking, especially now with the video camera on. But I think you can tell that there's this inverse relationship between somebody who's trying to just get everything done and say everything and feel like they don't have enough and nothing's enough and scarcity mindset, and it's so frantic and they're choking up and they can't even take a breath for themselves, versus someone who's like, let me think about that before I answer. That's a really interesting perspective. Do I want to live my life that way? What would this look like if it was a little bit more relaxed and easy, perhaps joyful? And all of that comes from giving yourself the time, space, and grace to move through life a little more slowly. So you have time. You have time. I don't care how delusional it may sound to somebody who has experienced. I recently found out that a couple of friends passed away that I used to know. We weren't really close, but they were important at a certain time in my life. And yes, there's this realization that like, oh my God, life is short. Like anything can happen to any of us at any point, but also like it's the longest. I just keep coming back to this idea that life is also the longest thing that we'll ever experience, from our own perspective. And then when we die, it's over. Like we're done ruminating on how short or long life is and trying to argue about it. But choose the belief that is serving you at any given moment, whether that's life is short, seize the day, carpe diem, or I have time. Let me approach this with intention. Okay, let's move on to mindset shift number 2. This one might get me a little bit canceled. So hopefully I do a good job of explaining my intention here. Many rules are simply suggestions. I'm not saying every single one of them, and you must break the law in order to feel more confident. But I think about often this one fight I had with my ex. I told you this in my breakup story podcast episode. I'll link to that in the description. But I moved to a different country for a guy, gave up my full ride scholarship to university to do so. And I immediately moved in with him after knowing him for only a couple of months. And it was chaotic and there was heartbreak, but also healing and, learning and growing and evolving through that. So I move in with him. And it's late July. And in Canada, where I moved, school, like university classes, don't start until September. So through that summer, I was researching like how to move, meaning like how do I transfer universities? How do I make sure I have my education set up? And when I was on the phone with the university, they basically told me like, your grades are so good, it should be no problem. We'll get you, settled and transferred and everything. And so by the time July rolls around, I'm like fully moved, only packed 2 suitcases, broke my lease at my old apartment, gave my mom a panic attack, booked a one-way flight. Like I'm already there living with him. This is late July. Hey, self-lovers, sorry to interrupt, but do you have my self-love playlist? There's over 300, if not 400 songs on it that are so fun and uplifting and empowering, and I think will really be perfect for when you're getting ready, trying to hype yourself up, dealing with a bad body image day, or anytime you just want a little boost of self-love. These tracks will do it for you. So head to maryscupoftea.com/playlist to get it and know that I am dancing and jamming with you from afar. Cheers. Through August, I'm kind of just enjoying my life until school starts in September. And somewhere in like mid to late August, I get a letter that I was rejected from the university. Rejected. I don't remember what the circumstance was, but when I got that rejection letter, it said, I remember the last sentence said, feel free to apply next year. And I'm like, what do you mean next year? Like, I just gave up my full ride scholarship in my home state to move for a guy. And now I'm rejected from university. What am I going to do? Like, I just felt stupid and broken and absolutely devastated. Like, it felt like my life was over because I banked the entire decision of moving on the fact that, like, at least I'll have school and that would be a big part of my identity. But now that that was taken away from me, I was just absolutely devastated. So I remember telling my ex this as we are driving and we got into this fight. He got really angry at me and said, why would you just take no for an answer? Like, why would you just accept the rejection letter? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, this is what they said. This is the rules. It has the official, heading of the university. Like, that's just it. I can't go to school this year. And he goes, no. And he basically was like, if me or my family as immigrants to this country, if we ever took no for an answer, like the first answer that we got, we would still be living in our home country and not be here and not be, thriving and successful and trying to build a life for ourselves and future generations. So why are you taking no for an answer? Why don't you, he's like, go to the office. Let's write them this letter. Send them more of your transcripts. His brain was like, solutions. How can we get you into school? And the fight was because I was like, no, babe, like these are the rules. And Mary used to be quite a bit of a stickler for rules, and I think that comes from a generally noble personality trait of like, I like to be respectful and on time to things, and I take no for an answer, I suppose, or I did. Long story short, through moving mountains and finding a solution, I connected with like a counselor on campus, and they basically created this path for me that wasn't like completely into the degree program that I wanted, but I was basically taking open university college classes that later applied seamlessly to the degree that I wanted, but I was still able to be a full-time student that year. And if it wasn't for my ex and just this mindset of rules are meant to be bent, there's always a way, there's always something to do, somebody to talk to. I think it's powerful to ask, okay, who do I need to get in touch with? Who can I reach out to? Who can help? This has served me so many times in life. Now, here's the giant caveat. I'm assuming that you're emotionally intelligent enough to not need it. But in case there's somebody out there being like, but ethics, and there's so many people who hear this advice and then they bend the rules in very terrible ways. Obviously, I'm not talking to those people. If you're watching this podcast episode, it means you and I are on the same wavelength. We're aligned. We're not trying to hurt or harm anyone ever. We do take no for an answer when it comes to things like consent and personal boundaries. And we are absolutely 100% into that. And we are not talking about the people, mostly men, who take advantage of others, bribe their way to the top, or profit from exploiting systems. That is not what we are talking about here. And I do think it's mostly men who do that, with the exception of, who I was thinking about recently, Elizabeth Holmes. Have you watched that movie with Amanda Seyfried and just the whole, I got a $70 payout because like 10 years ago, I actually took one of her blood tests that ended up being like completely faulty. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, it was this like Silicon Valley entrepreneur, Elizabeth Holmes, and she got billions of dollars in investor funding for this like blood testing service. Long story short, it was all fake and faulty and fraudulent. So her ass got sued. She was in prison. And recently they settled, like the settlement fund came out and they sent me like a check for $70. There's all these like movies and documentaries about it that are fascinating. But of course, that is not the vibe. So I guess the litmus test for, should I bend or break this rule? Would that be ethical or not? Is asking yourself, according to whom? Like, this is the rule according to whom? And I think with my like example with college, it's like, oh, this is the rule according to what? The University of Calgary? Okay, but like universities are run by people and people understand all kinds of circumstances that students might be in. Maybe there's a person that I could get a hold of who could help me navigate this, right? When you think about it that way, it's like maybe it's worth another phone call. Maybe it's worth another email. Maybe it's worth trying to find a different roundabout way toward getting what you want. And I think that when you do this, when you just like reach out and ask, there's absolutely no harm in asking once, maybe even twice. There's also like, even if you say according to whom and you're like, oh, it's the law, there is something to be said about like if a corrupt politician makes a terrible law that hurts people, it is up to us, the people, to like organize, gather, and collectively try to change that law, right? That is a noble cause. We need to challenge things that people do for profit and personal gain. But if you ask that question, according to whom, and you can't really come up with an actual answer, maybe it sounds something like, well, that's just the way things are. If you hear that in your self-talk, or if you hear somebody else saying that, a lot of people like to say that's just the way things are as a way to justify further, hate and oppression and whatever shitty ass random little rules that they come up with. That might be a sign to challenge that. This is the message I really want to deliver to you. And my long-winded way of saying that confidence comes from challenging the norms that were never built for you. Confidence comes from challenging the norms that were never built for you. I often think about this person I follow on Instagram who I just receive so much wisdom from, and I highly recommend following them. Listen to their speeches and podcasts and poetry and comedy. They're just so funny. So Alok on Instagram, it's ALOK, and they dress in like very colorful, extravagant, beautiful clothing, and I apologize if this isn't the proper way to describe a non-binary person, but I would say they present like features-wise is pretty masculine. And so that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. But please, please, please listen to the way that Alok talks about this journey of full self-expression, even when it makes other people uncomfortable. Basically, the rule of like men must wear pants and men don't wear makeup and non-binary individuals challenging bullshit like that. I mean, holy shit. I see Alok as like one of the most confident people on this planet for having the courage to show up the way that they want, even in the face of just such terrible bigotry and discrimination. But essentially, this mindset of treating most rules as suggestions reminds you that you get to choose how you show up, and you don't need to be validated by a system that wasn't made for you. Okay, let's move on to the third delusional mindset shift to help you instantly gain a little bit more confidence. The only difference between you and the person that you admire, or say the person you compare yourself to, the only difference between you and them is that they started before you. I absolutely love this one because it might not be true. It might not be true. They could have started yesterday and went viral overnight and achieved all their wildest, craziest dreams. But, that's unlikely. I like to believe that the only difference between me and that person that I follow, that I look up to, that I admire, that I want to be like, that I'm like, wow, how do they do everything? The only difference between them and you is that they started before you. My friend Kate, she's an old friend from long ago, she told me this once over the phone, and I can't tell you how many times I've thought about it since. Anytime I'm feeling stuck comparing myself to others, like, oh, their podcast has grown so quickly, or, oh, they are so good at video editing, or their marriage seems beautiful and amazing, and they have this gorgeous family, and I want to be like them. Okay, The only difference between me and the woman with children is that she started having children before me. And one day, like, my time will come, but I get to start now. Like, if I want to, I can start trying to have children now. I can start building my new YouTube channel now. I can do whatever it is. Like, the time is now. You have time, but also you can start now where you are, how you are. The only difference between you and the person that you admire or compare yourself to or want to be like is that they started before you. Is this objectively true in all cases to every single person, every single successful person that you come across? Maybe not. I don't know. But hey, it's so useful to believe because it gets your mind into thinking about, like, okay, maybe I can start now. Branching off of that, the fourth semi-delusional mindset shift to make is that you don't have to be the best. You just have to be consistent. This is very much the mindset that I approached this podcast with. I know that especially when I started, do not have the resources for a full-blown studio, like all of those, beautiful podcasts that you see on social media, where they make all these clips and they have these high-profile guests and their microphone setup is just like top-notch. Like, I did not have the resources for that. Listen to my first ever episode. Please don't, actually. We've come a long way. Let's just say that. We've come a long way, but I just told myself, it's not going to be perfect. I just have to start. And there's a lot of podcasts out there. And you might be thinking about this in your industry too. You might be thinking, it's so saturated. Everybody's doing it. There's no space for me. But here's how you combat that. You tell yourself that it doesn't matter how good or bad I am, as long as I keep showing up. As long as you keep showing up, you are going to, at the very least, grow as a person, build so many skills, figure out what you like, what you don't like, what works, what doesn't along the way, and modify from there, right? You're going to experience so much more by staying consistent than you will by thinking about your idea, trying to make it perfect, making sure you have a beautiful website for your small business startup and gather all the funds to invest in the equipment you need before you can even make any kind of micro move to starting that goal or dream of yours. You do not have to have everything perfectly figured out before starting. That is called analysis paralysis, ladies and gentle people. That is not the vibe here. Confidence comes from consistency because consistency is how you gather evidence. When you have evidence, okay, here's how I like to think about it. Consistency fills in the gap between where you are now and where you want to be. So then as you're taking aligned action steps consistently toward filling in that gap, it creates an identity shift. Suddenly you go from I want to start a YouTube channel someday to I'm a YouTuber because I consistently create videos. Or I want to run a marathon one day to I'm a runner because I prioritize running. Oftentimes, this is kind of a bittersweet thought, but think about how many doctors there are out there that are straight C students. If a passing grade is a C, there are people in every single profession that are C students. And that's okay. Maybe like you're the C student, but it's C for consistency, okay? It is C for cunty consistency. Sorry, I didn't mean to throw in the vulgarity there, but it's that vibe of like tenacity of I'm going to keep going. I'm just going to take these baby steps. And what's going to set you apart from somebody else is that I'm going to keep showing up with capital C, consistency. And that's why over time, it's been a slow and steady growth with this podcast, a lot more than I could have ever imagined, but also a lot less than, of course, I dream of. But if I don't keep showing up, then I don't have the right to have podcast listeners. That would be like absolutely insane of me to believe well, maybe I should believe it. I don't know. This podcast is about being delusional, but I think it would be like a little unhelpful for me to believe that I deserve podcast listeners just because I released a podcast episode once, or I deserve YouTube subscribers because I made one YouTube video. I think consistency is about like earning the right and validating yourself internally. And confidence grows when you can look back at your own actions and think, damn, I'm doing it. Like, that's the type of internal validation that's going to get you so much farther than people who are stuck in analysis paralysis, trying to be perfect and have everything figured out before they put themselves out there and do the thing. There are people who have more privilege, more access, more resources, but it's not guaranteed that they will get far because 90% of people quit. And one of the only things that can set you apart is being consistent. Now, of course, there are people with innate natural talent. Michael Jordan. I just recently watched the documentary. It's so good. I am not interested in sports or basketball at all, but I saw like a TikTok recommending documentaries, and this one was really good. It just really highlights how, like, yeah, he was talented and he's born gifted, like a lot of superstars, world-class people are, but you get nowhere without consistently showing up to practice. And that reminds me of this formula that I like to use for luck. The formula for luck, since we're talking about being delusional here, a lot of people on the internet right now, it's really popular to be like, I'm so lucky, like lucky girl syndrome. And I love that vibe. And I totally believe in manifesting to a certain extent. Totally separate topic about how I feel about manifesting. But basically, luck to me is opportunity meets preparation. You cannot get lucky if you're not out there doing the thing that you want to get lucky for. You are not going to find your significant other unless you put yourself out there. Date and meet people and figure out what you like and what you don't like along the way. Consistently showing up, not only will it build your confidence, but it's also just a numbers game. Something good could be right around the corner, but you need to keep walking, and you keep just making those laps around your neighborhood, and around every corner, there's an opportunity for luck to find you. So the last mindset shift, this one's a little bit more esoteric, new age. Whatever is meant for you is already yours. Time just has yet to sync up. Whatever is meant for me is already mine. Time just hasn't caught up yet. This belief is about transcending time and space, getting yourself out of this like limited thinking of what I see as all there is and who I am now is who I'll always be, and I'll just feel this stuck forever and I need, some kind of like external miracle to help get me out of this rut. This belief is about empowering. All these beliefs are about empowering yourself from within so that you have the confidence to take action. But sometimes it's not about like hustle and grinding, like knuckling your way through life, thinking about every single action step that you're going to take. It does involve a certain level of surrender to believe that, hey, whatever is meant to happen for me, not to me, whatever's meant to happen for me has already happened. It's inevitable. It's out there at some point in the future. If we transcend the space-time continuum, it's already in existence. There's a future me living that reality. So I might as well just relax for now. And that doesn't mean relax and like a throw your hands up and do nothing. Again, luck is opportunity meets preparation. So you got to get out there to find that luck. But it's more about this like, okay, I know I'll publish a book one day, but I still got to write the damn book. Or like, I'll perform on stage soon, but maybe I should practice my song or dance or act. What do I have to do now to be the type of person who is whatever you want to be in the future? What do I have to do now to be the type of mom that I want to be in the future? What do I have to do now to be the type of famous actor that I am in the future? When you come across a quote, and usually there's like a bunch of garbage on the internet that sounds cute and fluffy, but doesn't feel really applicable when you're down in the dumps. But this one I just loved. It said, "Do I deserve this? Am I worthy of this? When we question ourselves, do I deserve this? Am I worthy of this? So irrelevant. Do you want it? Do you want it? There is a future you that is living your dream. And if you believe that as inevitable, if you believe that she's out there, but time just has yet to catch up, then it's just a matter of, okay, what am I going to do with my time now? This reminds me of the recent podcast episode that I did with Oliver Berkman about life is kind of like a menu of choices. We have so many choices. They're infinite, but our time is finite. Our capacity as humans is finite. So it's kind of like a menu of okay, what do I want to do today? As the late poet Mary Oliver put it, what do I want to do with this one wild and precious life? And again, sometimes hearing poetry like that is intimidating because it's life is short, time is finite. I need to figure everything out right now to do it perfectly. But that is not the point. The point is life is life, however you want to quantify it in your mind that is useful to you. I historically have always been the type of person that tries to get to the bottom of things, find the truth. I love researching. I love documentaries. I was obsessed with Alcatraz growing up. I'm like, how did the one person escape? Although the government doesn't admit that somebody escaped. I just want to know the truth. I'm a truth seeker. And I love that about me. And sometimes it's kind of unhealthy. There's this book called Useful, Not True by Derek Sivers. The premise of the book is basically what if you stopped asking, is this true? And instead started asking, is this useful? Is this useful? Does this help me do good in the world? Does this help my confidence? Because if you're constantly stuck researching, truth seeking, trying to get it right, doom scrolling, all those kind of toxic compulsive behaviors that we fall into when we're feeling insecure, unmotivated, stuck, lost, then it prevents us from going out there, getting beyond ourselves, and actually moving toward what we want to create. So remember these delusional mindset shifts or semi-delusional mindset shifts from today. You have time. You might not know how much time exactly you have, but you have time. Secondly, rules can be just suggestions. The only difference between you and that person that you admire is that they started before you. Consistency creates confidence. You don't have to be the best. You can just be the most consistent. And lastly, what is meant for you is already yours. Time just has yet to catch up. Are all these capital T true? Maybe not, but perhaps some of them might be useful to you. That's my last little unintentional rhyme for today. Confidence doesn't always have to be logical. It just has to set you free.